Welcome to Lasting Power of Attorney, and we're here with Helen Girton, who's one of the private client solicitors at Alfred Truman's. Helen, how long does a lasting power of attorney last?
It lasts as long as you're alive. It will come to an end as soon as you die. I think there's a little bit of confusion about that. A lot of people think that it carries on after somebody's died and they can carry on dealing with your affairs and administer your estate. It doesn't. It dies with the person that's given the power of attorney, and then hopefully you've got a will, and the will takes over with the executors, who may or may not be the same people. Of course, if an attorney dies and you've only appointed one attorney, then it will come to an end then. Similarly, if the attorney becomes mentally incapable, which is a good reason why there's more than one attorney.
So this is all. These are very important considerations
They are,
then,
yes.
because if you die, then you've got no will, then suddenly you're intestate and there's nothing anyone can do.
Nothing anybody can do about that.
Right. And if your attorney is different to your executors, then all of the powers transfer to the executors.
They do, yes. I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just that the attorney's authority stops dead, unfortunately.
So would you recommend that someone who's putting together a lasting power of attorney should also consider it in light of a will?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, and it's always best practice to have both of them, in fact. Most people who come to see me to do a will. We then have a discussion and they realise how important it is to do a power of attorney, specifically, generally, for property and affairs, although quite a lot of people are anxious to have a personal welfare lasting power of attorney as well.
You see, now that's a question I would not have thought to have asked about doing the two at the same time, because often you have different thoughts.
Well, you do, and most people would do a property and affairs power of attorney as opposed to a personal welfare one, because most people are concerned, particularly if they're likely to go into residential care, that somebody can look after their affairs. The personal and welfare one is an entirely separate lasting power of attorney that will only operate when you become mentally incapable. It can't operate before that, but it does allow someone to speak on your behalf for your basically day-to-day living, you know, how you're going to live, but more importantly, and I find that this is the thing that more people are concerned about, is that it does give them the option to say, this attorney can give advice as to my life-sustaining treatment. The power of attorney for personal welfare does have that option. You can actually say, we don't want them to have the authority to talk about whether we're going to have life-sustaining treatment or not, but it does. And I find that's one of the reasons that people want to make it, is they want somebody to be responsible for those decisions for them.
Okay, and can the lasting power of attorney be used as soon as it's signed?
No, or both sorts have to be registered with the Court of Protection before it can be used. There's a 6-week statutory period before which they will register it. Just sits there waiting to see if somebody needs to make an objection or wants to make an objection. But after that it is then registered. So it is one of the reasons why it's important to think about it sooner rather than later, because it doesn't take effect immediately. You've got that gap, and therefore if you're concerned somebody needs something doing quickly, then it needs to be registered first. And I'm talking here perhaps about if somebody has an accident and they're perhaps in intensive care, there's nothing that can be used. They should have done it. Well, I mean, they're going to have to appoint a deputy in those circumstances, so we're going to have to wait an awful long time. So we always recommend that the power of attorney is registered at the point that you make it, because you can make it and not register it. Can't be used until it's registered. It can be registered by the attorneys if and when you've become mentally incapable, as long as it's in existence at that time. But then you've got that delay.
You've got that delay. Okay. And how long does it take to register the power of attorney?
Well, at least a 6-week period. It can take a bit longer. It depends how busy the Court of Protection is, for physically to get the paperwork back out again.
So Helen, thank you very much for having me in today and for sharing all your wisdom with us.
Thank you.
For all your lasting power of attorney needs, contact Alfred Truman Solicitors now in Bicester on 01869 360079 or in Buckingham on 01280 822217.